She called the cops and screamed, "He's trespassing on private property." But I was standing in front of my grandpa's farmhouse, this same porch where I learned to ride a bike. The wind blew across the open fields, rattling the old wooden fence I'd repaired just a week ago. I'd spent months restoring this place, painting every board, replacing every nail. My grandpa built it in 1942, long before any HOA existed. But the moment I moved in, Karen, from across the road, decided it was her new mission to protect the neighborhood. She marched up, clipboard in hand, sunglasses too big for her face. "This property falls under the HOA's jurisdiction," she said sharply. "You can't make changes without approval." I looked at her, calm but firm. "Ma'am, this land was never part of your HOA. My grandpa owned it long before your community even existed." She scoffed. "That's not how it works. We have standards here. You can't just show up and start hammering things like some hillbilly." Her words stung, but I stayed silent. My late grandpa always said, "Real power doesn't shout. It waits." Karen pulled out her phone, snapping pictures like she was collecting evidence. "I'll have to report this to the HOA board," she said smugly. "They'll send you a fine." I couldn't help but smile. "You do that." A few days later, I was repainting the front porch when I heard sirens. 2 police cars rolled up, lights flashing. Karen stood across the street with her arms folded, a grin on her face like she just won something. The officer stepped out. "Sir, we got a call about a trespasser, claims you're occupying a property without permission." Karen shouted from the sidewalk, "That's him! Arrest him before he runs!" I wiped my hands, walked down the steps slowly, and handed the officer my ID. He glanced at it and froze. His eyes went wide. "Sir, Mayor Thompson?" he stammered. Karen's grin faded instantly. "Mayor?" I looked at her, half smiling. "Yeah, Mayor Daniel Thompson. And this farmhouse? It's been in my family for generations." Her face drained of color. The officer turned toward her. "Ma'am, you just made a false police report on the town's mayor." Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out, only the sound of distant wind through the cornfields. I just looked back at my house and said quietly, "My grandpa always said this land would test people's character. Guess he was right." Karen didn't show her face for 2 days after that, but on the 3rd morning, I saw her SUV creeping past my driveway real slow. She stopped, pretending to check her mailbox, but her eyes were fixed on me. I was repainting the fence, again. She finally rolled down her window and called out, "Mayor Thompson, we had a misunderstanding the other day. You see, the HOA just wants to maintain harmony here." I wiped my hands and looked up. "Harmony doesn't start with calling the cops on your neighbors, Karen." Her smile tightened. "Well, some people just don't follow community rules." "Community?" I asked. "Karen, this land isn't even inside your HOA's border. You'd know that if you read the county zoning maps instead of Facebook rumors." She froze, caught off guard. "Those maps must be outdated. I'll confirm with the board." I laughed softly. "You do that. And while you're at it, tell the board to stop sending fake violation letters to my mailbox." Her expression shifted, guilt mixed with panic. She mumbled something about clerical errors and drove off, tires crunching the gravel. That night, a white envelope appeared on my door again. No return address, just big red letters. "Notice of violation. Unauthorized construction." I could tell by the sloppy seal it wasn't official. She was at it again. I decided not to react this time. Instead, I called someone I knew at the county clerk's office. "Hey, Dave, I need you to check something. Any HOA authority over Parcel 7B, Old Mill Road?" He chuckled. "You kidding me? That's outside their range by 2 miles. They've got no power there." "Good," I said. "I might need that in writing." The next morning, I saw Karen holding a little HOA meeting today sign right at the edge of my property, technically on my side of the ditch. She was trying to prove some kind of point. I walked over calmly, hands in my jacket pockets. "You're trespassing, Karen." She turned red. "You can't tell me that. We're here to discuss community order." I smiled faintly. Community order, right on my land. Behind her, a few neighbors stood awkwardly, whispering. They clearly hadn't known she'd picked a fight with the mayor. So I raised my voice slightly, not angry, just steady. "If you want to hold meetings about me, at least do it where you're allowed to stand." Her jaw clenched. "You'll regret this." Maybe, but I doubt it. As I walked back to my porch, I could hear the murmurs starting among the neighbors. People were asking questions about her authority, her lies, and that's when I knew Karen wasn't done yet. But this time, I wasn't just defending my farmhouse. I was about to expose her for what she really was.
The next week, I started noticing small things, subtle at first, but too organized to be coincidence. My trash bins went missing twice, a no trespassing sign appeared facing my property, nailed to a tree I'd planted myself. Then, one morning, a county truck stopped at my driveway. A man in a reflective vest stepped out, clipboard in hand. "Morning, Mayor. We got a report that you're building an illegal structure. A shed without a permit?" I blinked. A shed? I'm restoring a chicken coop that's been here since 1960. He nodded, flipping through his papers. "Yeah, that's what I figured. But we got about 6 anonymous complaints from your HOA. I almost laughed. Karen. He smirked. "That name came up more than once." He handed me a copy of the complaint. At the top, in shaky cursive, it said, "This man is illegally expanding his property beyond HOA standards. Immediate action needed." I took the paper, sighed, and said, "Thanks, Jeff. I'll take care of it." That night, I sat on the porch watching the sunset when I saw her again, Karen, pacing near her mailbox, talking loudly on her phone. Her words carried across the quiet fields. "Yes, he's abusing power. We can file a citizen petition to have him removed as mayor. Yes, I'll handle the paperwork myself." I shook my head slowly. She wasn't just being nosy anymore. She was desperate. The next morning, I walked into City Hall like any other day. My assistant, Laura, looked uneasy. "Sir, someone dropped off a packet for you, anonymous." I opened it. Inside were printed screenshots, photos, and typed letters, all trying to paint me as corrupt. False claims about misusing town funds to renovate private property. Every document traced back to one name, Karen Boyd, head of her HOA board. I leaned back in my chair, calm but burning inside. She had crossed a line. Laura looked nervous. Should I call the legal department? I smiled faintly. Not yet. Let her think she's winning. That evening, I invited the local news crew to the farmhouse. "You'll want to record this," I told them. I had a plan, one my grandpa would have been proud of. The next morning, as Karen stormed up my driveway, waving another fake violation notice, 2 cameras turned toward her. She froze. "Karen Boyd," I said clearly, "you've been harassing me, filing false complaints, and impersonating local authority. As mayor, I can't ignore that anymore." Her face went pale as the news microphones caught every word. "You're making a mistake," she snapped, glancing nervously at the cameras. "No," I said quietly, "you did." Karen's voice cracked as the cameras zoomed in. You can't just expose me like this." I kept my tone calm. "Karen, the only thing I exposed is the truth." The reporters were already asking questions, flashing lights across her shocked face. Behind her, a few of her own HOA members were watching, whispering among themselves. The man who handled their HOA accounts finally stepped forward. "Karen, is it true?
We're not even authorized for this area? Karen stammered. Of course we are. I have the documents at home. I turned to the reporter and nodded toward Jeff, the county officer, standing by his truck. He held up a folder and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "According to county zoning, this land hasn't been part of any HOA since 1991. In fact, the original HOA license for this subdivision expired 10 years ago and was never renewed." The crowd gasped. Cameras kept rolling. Karen's knees looked weak. "That's not possible. I sent letters, collected dues." I finished her sentence. "From people who trusted you. You took their money and bullied your neighbors. You built power on a lie." Her fake smile collapsed. You set me up." I shook my head. "No, Karen. You set yourself up when you thought authority was a costume you could wear." The police officer who'd arrived earlier approached, holding a small warrant packet. "Karen Boyd, you're under investigation for falsifying HOA documents and filing fraudulent complaints." She tried to protest, but her voice broke as handcuffs clicked behind her. The same neighbors she'd ordered around now watched silently, some even recording. I took a deep breath and looked back at the farmhouse, its porch bathed in the golden evening light. My grandfather's flag still waved gently above the barn. I smiled faintly and said to the reporter beside me, "This place taught me something important. Real power isn't about control. It's about responsibility." As they led Karen to the patrol car, I picked up my paintbrush and went back to the porch. The reporter called out, "Mr. Mayor, what will you do now?" I smiled. What I came here to do: restore what my grandfather built and make sure nobody ever thinks they can own what they didn't earn. The camera zoomed in one last time as I nailed the final board back into place, and over the soft sound of the hammer, I said quietly, "You can't bully truth, no matter how loud you shout." The screen would fade out there, the farmhouse standing proud, Karen's car disappearing in the distance, and the small town mayor quietly reclaiming his legacy.